working in backstage theater for more than 3 decades, I've always been a big proponent of these more standard methods of sweeping and mopping spaces. The way we use the dust mops, push brooms, and wet mops, big standard wet mops for cleaning our stages and our shops and our spaces. And I've carried that over into my home life. The dust mop for quickly sweeping up my hardwood floors. I don't have any carpet. I'm not a big fan of carpet, so I've only got tile in the kitchen and the bathroom. The rest of the house is hardwood floors. And I've always used a damp mop to mop the floors. The problem is using the mop and the big mop bucket is always a big production. I have to fill up the mop bucket. It's a big bucket of mop water, and I feel like if I'm going to go to the trouble of mopping, I might as well move all the furniture and do a deep spring type cleaning whenever I'm doing that. Because of that, it's not really convenient for quick and easy daily or weekly maintenance on the floors. So I end up putting that off way too long, and then I have to do a deep cleaning, and it just doesn't work for me. So when I saw this cordless personal electric mop, I thought that might actually be a solution to get me to sweep and mop my floors more regularly in between those deep clean sessions that I do every couple of months, and get myself some daily maintenance and care on my floors a little bit more efficiently without making it a big production. This is the VMAI electric cordless mop. I saw it on a stitched video from Jordan the Stallion on TikTok, and I thought, oh, I gotta try that out. Let me check that out. I did a bit of research. There's a lot of different variations on the market. Bissell makes one. This is an off-brand. It's fairly cheap, fairly inexpensive. It only has 1 speed. It has a very specific size of pad, and there are a whole range of pad sizes that are out there and available. The manual doesn't really specify the size of the pad. Yes, you can take a tape measure to it, but because some have fringe on them, you're not really sure 100% what you're supposed to be measuring for the right fit. And some of these easy to find but cheap products do tend to have very little detail in the manuals, very little information. A couple of reviews online said you can't get spare batteries for this, and you can't. They also said you can't get extra pads. And while that's kind of true, it's not real clear that the manufacturer, this doesn't sell additional pads other than the 4 that comes with it. There are a bunch of other people that sell the same type of pads. It's just a matter of finding the one that's the right size. It is touted as an effective dust mop on many of its advertisements. But because the 2 spinning discs just go around in opposite directions, it doesn't actually pick up and grab any of that dust mop material like potato chips, leaves, cat hair, fur, dust bunnies, all of that. It's just not going to pick it up. It's just going to spin it around and throw it around and throw it out of orbit of its action. So it's not an effective dust mop, despite what it may claim on any of its advertisements. It also has a fairly small limited capacity for water. It does spray water out in front of the machine. It only has a 300 milliliter tank. Other than pouring it in through the top fill spout, there's no real way to see what is in the tank, and there's no real way to effectively drain and clean out the tank. The advertisements and the instructions do say you can dilute your cleaner and put it inside with the liquid water. I tried that once. I wasn't really happy with it because, again, if you keep putting the cleaner in there, there's no way to effectively rinse it out other than through successive tanks and sprayings and use of flushing it out with just plain water. If you start using cleansers inside, it's going to build up, and you're going to probably always be putting out cleanser even if you just want to use water. You could get one mop that has the cleanser in it and a second that has water, and you could have it separated that way. But I choose to use another method, which is I have my soap and cleanser as a spray bottle, and I spray it directly onto the surface, and I only now put water into the machine, just to keep the water tank from getting filled up with soap residue, and just so I can have a clean rinse cycle. And that is the other thing that is not apparent when you're looking at these models. The big difference between this and a wet mop is that you have to manufacture a rinse cycle with this machine so that you can cleanse and scrub with soap, and then you can come back and rinse. With a big mop bucket, you've got a larger quantity of water. You're able to rinse off your mop head regularly. You're able to rinse out the dirt that is being picked up by the mop head. And you're able to go through that cycle and effectively both clean and scrub and rinse your floor with the mop bucket. If you need to with the mop bucket, yes, you can do 2 cycles. You can use one with soap and then throw the water out and then come back and do a rinse coat. I find I use a little tiny bit of soap in 3 or 4 gallons of water here, and I don't really have any questions with residue. But if I'm going to just use this machine with soap and cleanser and water, and I don't do a rinse cycle afterwards, then I'm going to leave that soapy residue on my surface of my floors, and that's going to build up and create just a mess over time. So what I do with this machine is I manufacture a scrub cycle and I manufacture a rinse cycle. And that means I'm changing out the pads quite a bit. When the pads get dirty, I change them out because I can't rinse them out through the normal use of the machine. The machine does come with only 4 pads. It comes with 2 of the pink with the white fringe that they say are for mopping, and it comes with 2 of the gray pads that they say are for waxing. And you'll find really quickly that only having those 4 pads makes it difficult to either clean or wax. I don't wax my floors. I can't really speak to that, but I can't imagine that 1 pad is going to be effective. Maybe 1 pad on a very clean floor, but you're going to need a lot more pads to actually clean your floor before you can wax it. Again, the instruction manual didn't specify the diameter of pad that is correct for this machine. It could be anywhere from 6, 6.5 to 7, 7.25. It's in that range. All of those sizes work well with this machine. I did buy some 8-inch pads and they are too big for this machine. I think these are the green 6-inch pads that I bought for a different machine. They are a little too small. So 6 inches is probably too small. Something closer to the 7-inch mark is going to be correct. These are some 8-inch pads that I think are again for the Bissell brand scrubber. They're too big. I tried them out, they're too big. This one's kind of nice. It's got soft bristles and it's got some plasticky, harder bristles in there. It's going to be a little bit more scrubbing action. The soft pink ones are really gentle. They're going to be really gentle on your wood floors and any delicate surfaces. The gray ones don't really have much of a difference of a feel, although they're more of a microfiber type of weave to them, which is probably why they're recommended for waxing. This particular pad, although it is also very soft, if you go in one direction, it also has some little plasticky bristles. So a little bit more scrubbing action with some of these other pads. This one's a gray and white pad, another manufacturer. I didn't feel like any of those options was aggressive enough and scrubbing enough for my tile floors, particularly my bathroom tile floor. So I looked at some other options, and there are some more Scotch type abrasive pads that are designed for sanders. And while they're not recommended for this machine, I have had success with them. These particularly gray scrubbing pads also have the same type of Velcro. They attach to this machine. They work just fine, and they've got just a little bit more abrasiveness that works great on tile. I would not use this on my hardwood floors. I would not use this on any of my other more delicate surfaces, but I am having great success with these on my bathroom tile. These just stick on, no problem. Now, before we get to using the wet mop, we need to dust mop, we need to sweep. So this machine will not do the sweeping for you. Like I said, it's just gonna throw the dirt and the chunks and the big things around. If you sweep, get out your broom. I like the dust mop. The dust mop is real quick and efficient with this. You know, you just get a large area with the dust mop real quickly. You take that out. Pick that up. Now we're ready for our electric mop. Why not just use a Swiffer? Swiffer is kind of a compromise, right? It's kind of like a dust mop and a wet mop. You can get wet mop heads for it. I'm not a big fan of being locked into a continuous use of expendables. The dust mop, no expendables there. Occasionally I might have to replace my mop head, but I can also shake it out and throw it in the wash every couple of months or as frequently as I need to. Same thing with the wet mop. No expendables there. As long as you don't let your mop head go all mildewy and let it air out and dry properly between moppings, you can get a long life out of the mop head and you can replace those every so often. But the Swiffers, you're basically constantly using expendables. The Swiffer will act like a dust mop, but after a couple of uses and after I picked all that up, it already starts to get dirty and then you throw it away. And I'm not a big fan of that cycle. It's very efficient, it works very well. It just starts scrubbing and then you pull the trigger and it sprays water out front and then you get the pads wet. And you can see there's some fluff that I didn't pick up from the dust mop and from the Swiffer. It will eventually pick up some of that, but mostly it throws it around. What I like to do, again, rather than putting soap into the dispenser, is I'll just put some soap on the floor. This is simple green, diluted with water. So not much cleanser at all. You don't need a whole lot. And then you spray some more water out and just sort of scrub that in. Go as fast or slow as I want. Obviously, the more time you spend lingering in one place, the better your scrubbing action you're going to be and the cleaner you're going to keep the floors. So if I go real fast, that's not really helping me actually do the job. My pads are now a little bit saturated with both water and soap. I don't have to keep putting soap on everywhere. I'll put it on periodically. But yeah, this makes real light work of doing my daily, weekly maintenance on my floors, and I've been very pleased with that. So that's about as much as I can reasonably get on a normal dirty floor with one set of pads, because now my pads are dirty. I can keep using these same pads over more surfaces, but now that they're clogged with dirt, now that they're clogged with soap, at a certain point, I'm just going to be moving the dirt around and not actually picking up any new dirt. So there is a small capacity of the pads. These pads are a little bit dirty, not real bad. I did just do this a couple of days ago. So now what I normally do is I then take a clean set of pads and I'll put a clean set of pads on. And now I'll do a rinse cycle because I've done a soap and scrub cycle. My tank is almost out of water. Again, just gonna let it go till it sputters a little bit more. So really these machines should come with a dozen or more pads of each of the type so that you can do this cycle. The fact that they only come with typically 4 pads, this machine or other brands, just seems a little bit of an anathema to actually being able to get your floors clean. And the fact that they don't tell you that you probably need to do a scrub cycle and a rinse cycle seems a bit of an oversight. I'm out of water, I need to fill it up with more water. This particular brand only comes with a filler that has both 200 milliliters measured on it and 150 milliliters. The tank is 300 milliliters, so you can either do the 150 twice, Or you can do the 200 once and follow with another 100. Again, the only other indication that you're running low is that sputtering sound. And that's 150 milliliters twice, and it actually overflowed, so it did have a little bit of water still inside. But the extra water doesn't matter. I'll just shake it off, and it's just going to get absorbed by the pads anyway. All right, so I'm just going to finish mopping and rinsing this section here that I just did. It's not a magic one and done type of thing, unfortunately, but it is a much less of a big production than getting out the mop bucket. So I'm happy with that. Let's take a look at these pads after the rinse. And they picked up some dirt as well, but these are my water only pads, rinse pads, so I'm going to make sure they stay separate. My soap and scrub pads are not so bad, so I'm going to do another section of soap and scrub. See, it goes fairly quickly. Those are now dirty enough. Now we'll do a rinse. And again, I find it very nice and efficient to be able to quickly do maintenance, daily maintenance, or several times weekly maintenance on my floors without having to get out the big production of the mop and without having to move all the furniture and do a deep clean, spring cleaning type of thing. Maybe you don't believe me that the machine, when it's putting soap on the floor, that it doesn't actually pick it back up, and that's why you need a rinse cycle, because you can't really see it on the wood floors. But I've got this black chair protector mat. You're going to definitely see the soap residue on there after a scrub. Start with fresh, clean pads. Put some Simple Green soap down. Again, this is Simple Green diluted with water, so it's not straight up concentration. So look at that. You can see right away the amount of soap that is sudsing up. It's real fine suds. But again, every time I go past it, it just suds right up again. And if I just did that and walked away from it, I'm going to leave that layer of soap residue on my floor. And if you know anything about the science of how soap works, the soap molecules do two things. One part of the soap molecule grabs onto dirt, and the other grabs onto water. What that means, if I'm just going to leave that soap residue on there, that soap has dirt in it as well, and I'm also leaving dirt on there. So it looks like it dried and it looks like it's gone, but there's still soap residue in there. I just did this the other day, so these are really clean. Now we'll do the rinse, and you'll see the soap residue should start to come up with a little bit of rinsing. It is still sudsing up, but I need to do this rinse cycle. You see, the more I rinse, the more the suds will come up. And the finer those suds get. maybe I put too much soap on there. Still sudsing up quite a bit. Try another fresh. All right, now I'm starting to see a lot less suds, and I'm actually getting through that rinse cycle and pulling my soap up, and as a result, also pulling my dirt up with the soap. So there's a good visual example of why you need to introduce a scrub and a rinse cycle with this machine. You can't expect it to be an all-in-one. And the more water I put on, I'm pulling up more soap, it looks like. You might need one more rinse cycle with another set of pads. And showing you also why you need to have lots and lots of pads. That's pretty good, although one more rinse cycle would probably do much better with a fresh set of pads. All of these dirty pads I can throw straight in the wash. I usually wash it with my area rugs or bath mats, and that's the same type of dirt and the same type of fibrous material. I don't run these through a dry cycle. I let them air dry or line dry. They dry really quickly. They don't really hold a lot of moisture after a wash and a spin cycle. You need a lot of pads. It otherwise works great. I'm throwing all these dirty pads straight into the wash. Wash with those mats. I'll even throw these sanding pads, abrasive pads in. The gray ones, you can't see the dirt on there as much, but you can see these first couple of pink pads really dirty. See, it's not going to dust mop dust bunnies at all. I don't care how aggressive you are, it's just not going to dust mop very well. Some people say it's hard to control. It's not actually at all hard to control. If you've ever used a bigger single disc floor scrubber or stripper, those are challenging to control. This is only challenging to control if you try to go one direction or the wrong direction, or you try to get into a corner. Sometimes it kind of wants to kick out at you. And that is one of the other limitations. You can't get into corners with it. You really need a vibrating edge scrubber, like our floor cleaner, our dance floor cleaner in the dance studio, to be able to get into corners. So it just refuses to pick up those dust bunnies. It is not a dust mop. It will never be a dust mop. It's picked up some dust, but it's just not good at being a dust mop. What's much better at being a dust mop? A dust mop. Look, I can get under the bed. I can pick all this stuff up. I can quickly go all the way over here and get all of this, and get into that corner, and I can bring all this stuff around, and I can get all of this, and then I can shake that out and sweep it up. That's all the stuff that little scrubber could not get. So these are the pink pads. They're already pretty dirty, but I'm going to use them for scrubbing this, and I'll show you that they don't really do much on a hard tile that needs a little bit more aggressive scrubbing. It's really, really too gentle for tile. And none of the pads that are available are really very good for tile. Now we'll try the gray scrub pads that are designed for rotary sander buffer. They fit right on just fine. These were the 7-inch, I believe, or 7¼ inch. I'll check my order and confirm. Now you're seeing, I'm seeing some suds scrubbing up, which the other one was not making any suds, not scrubbing any suds. It's just way too gentle for the tile. But this is actually doing a really good job of scrubbing up some of that dirt. Was not recommended for this tool. I know it's not always good to use attachments that aren't recommended for a particular tool, but I do find success with it. I'm going to put some clean pads on and do a rinse and pick up that soap. Obviously, the low water capacity is going to be an issue. You're going to be filling that a lot. But for the size and convenience, I don't really see that as a problem. That's it, one bathroom clean really quickly. You can see the pads are not that dirty. They picked up a little bit of dirt, but not as much as we were doing with our initial scrubs. This is what you're going to get if you are using a dirty mop head. You're going to get all these streaks, and it's not really going to. Those are footprints, but you can see the mopping, scrubbing streaks. I needed to change my mop head a long time ago. This little man, oh my God, Cheeseman. He was all over in the bed trying to get my attention earlier, but I really wanted to sleep up in late and just didn't want to get up. And he finally gave up, and these are all little scrub pads for my electric mop that are drying, and he just decided it is the perfect cat bed, and this is where he's going to have morning nap.